Hey, hey everybody, just Keith Mateka here, just 2:03, running a couple minutes behind on Friday, 7/10/2020. So yeah, we are just wrapping up a week, like two and a half, I guess, of the Kickstarter for Roll Player Adventures. We've got 1 week left. Exciting, exciting stuff coming. Just kind of getting ready to you know, just hit the end of the Kickstarter. I just thought I'd use this time to say hello and see if anybody had any outstanding questions regarding Role Player Adventures or anything else Thunderworks related. Also, just kind of give an update on a few things. Um, we've continued to unlock some stretch goals on the project. So I think I should check. I haven't looked at the project in an hour or so, but we're just a couple $1,000s away from knocking out that $500,000 stretch goal, which is the digital content stuff. So let me just talk about that for a little bit. So what is this digital, like this kind of playground set that we've been talking about? So this is an idea that it's been kind of bumping around in our heads for a while, but actually watching Rado's preview for Role Player Adventures really kind of made it something I was much more excited about. So the idea is that if we unlock the play set or whatever, we will create a document, create this relatively extensive document that basically tells people how to make Role Player Adventures modules, and and give people an opportunity to they can try their hand at building even more content for Role Player Adventures outside of the stuff that we're providing. So I always think of the old HeroScape website, HeroScapers, where people were like creating their own layouts and people were like creating their own custom characters to play with. So the idea here is that we would kind of lay out like, here are all the things that you need to know when you're putting together a Role Play Adventures adventure, and then and just kind of help people with that process. So the idea is that you could take just like Rado did, you could take the maps that we have in the game. There's 12 maps to use, and you can come up with your own stories. You can create new adventures for your players or other people to go through. So it's kind of like a toolkit for people that kind of want to get in there and create their own stories outside of the stories that James and Peter and the other guys, some of the other writers on the project created. And we want to support this. So like if we end up doing really well, then maybe we'll be able to unlock more content. So I would love to create like documentation and stuff for card frames that people can like build their own items, or they can do all kinds of additional stuff, and really kind of expand what you get out of the box. Not only the stuff that we've created, but also kind of open it up. This idea of what is that word where people open up, like in the computing world, is where they open it up to other people to jump in or whatever. So that digital play set or whatever, I think is going to be really cool. I really want to kind of foster a community. I would love to like see people getting involved and trying to expand the world. I mean, there's always kind of fan created stuff for popular games. Like, for example, a game I worked on for Pencil First Games is a game called Skull Hollow. And one of the users kind of created their own brand new solo guardian, open source. Thank you, John Rogers. Open source. So kind of like start embracing open source stuff a little bit for this project. So like anyway, I was talking about Skull Hollow. In that game, one of the fans just created a brand new guardian to play solo with, and that was like super cool. And for role player, there was some So there was some fan created content. Like there were some cards that people had come up with that were posting about on Board Game Geek and discussing and trying to use in their games. And for at least one of those guys, like I reached out to during the development of Fiends and Familiars. I was like, hey, you've got some cool ideas. Do you want to work with me a little bit and come up with some new things for Fiends and Familiars? And those cards made it into the game, And so it's like I want people who are the fans of the game who really love what's going on. Like if they want to take it another step, like I want to support that. So that's kind of what the digital playset idea is kind of all about. So obviously, it's not a small task to do all this additional documentation, but there is kind of this dream down the road of like if I would love to see what other people can do with the system that we've built, and like maybe that person or those people can kind of get involved with development on future kind of official stuff. So that's kind of what that's all about. So yeah. What else is cool and exciting to talk about? So one of the other stretch goals that people have been asking questions about that I would just touch on is this the 551. So this is like a secret component, and there's been other games that have done stuff like that, but I haven't seen anybody using this specific kind of secret component, and it's like Jamie Stegmaier did some stuff for Charterstone. If you that has like a secret component in the box that I don't think he really talked about a whole lot ahead of time, and he left it there for people to be surprised by, and that's kind of what this is as well. But it's like I'm not going to tell you what the Charterstone one is in case you're curious, although the packaging kind of telegraphs it quite a bit because there's some additional warnings that have to happen on the outside of the box due to that component. But the component of this one is just kind of cool. There's just kind of an idea that we had during development. Hey, this would be cool to include, and it was actually an idea from John Brigger, one of the developers on the project. And it was just kind of a cool idea. Like it doesn't. It kind of creates a cool moment when you're playing through the campaign when the secret thing gets unlocked. So it'll be in a envelope, that says "Don't open until instructed to," and then the book at some point will tell you to open it and then tell you to do something with that thing. So I don't, there's not a whole lot of information there, right? So it's like I want to keep it as secret as possible, but when we hit that stretch goal, like that funding level, we'll have the flexibility to include it, right? Because it's not free in terms of manufacturing costs. So yeah, so those are kind of the two kind of bigger things. John Rogers says, like how Root has so many fan factions. It's true. I remember playing a lot of I played a lot of Neuroshima Hex back in the day, and that had some fan factions that were kind of released on BGG, and then they eventually kind of like published them for real down the road, and I thought that was cool, and this is kind of the same idea. Robert Vash says, I'm looking like the Ranger. So yeah. Martin says, please make the playmat and the insert for Roll Player available in the Pledge Manager. Yeah, so the playmat for sure. The Roll Player playmat. No. Make the pledge mat and the insert for Roll Player available. So I assume Martin is talking about the Fiends and Familiars Kickstarter that we just. Oh no, you're asking for a Roll Player playmat in the Roll Player Adventures Pledge Manager. That's no problem. The insert is a little bit trickier because that is made in the U.S. by Meeple Realty, and they to get those, it'll be available for sure. It may not be available, like it may have some additional shipping costs for people outside of the U.S. or whatever. So yeah, the Meeple Realty, those guys made the insert for Roll Player and Monsters and Minions and Fiends and Familiars, the custom wooden one. So yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting kind of relationship there. So those guys, I sent them the box, they designed the thing, I say it seems cool. Like they're the insert experts, not me. So sometimes I have comments, or if they, but usually I just kind of let them do their magic. And then if people are buying it through me, I'm buying it from the Maple Realty guys. So um, it's definitely kind of like a, even though people are kind of buying it from me, it's kind of their product. So I'll have to talk to them about it. But you know, it's possible. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, if you guys have questions or comments or just want to talk about anything or pick my brain about something, feel free to drop a line for sure in the chat. In the meantime, I can talk about other cool stuff going on. So Roll Player Adventures is going great. We are in a good spot. Looking like we're going to hit 500,000 in the next day or so. So that's an exciting number. And then we've got some stuff planned for next week. Actually, I plan on doing an update later today. It's on my to-do list as to write it. So as a preview to that, we did like a class quiz for like, hey, what class are you? Kind of quiz earlier in the campaign. We have a one coming for like what faction are you for today's update. So in Role Player Adventures, there's 3 different kind of factions you're tracking. You're tracking your faction. You're standing with the Kingsguard, with the Starlit Door, which is this kind of chaos cult, and then you're also with the Dragul. The Dragul are like the vampires and the goblins and stuff. So you're tracking your favor with all these different groups, and they all have different kind of motivations, and they all have different perspectives on the world. So as you make choices throughout Role Player Adventures, your faction with those 3 groups is gonna go up and down, and then depending on where you're at on each of those factions, you're gonna like hit different payoffs. So like if the king wants you to do something and you are high with the Kingsguard, then you might get some bonus, or you might have some additional story moment. Whereas if you are not, then you won't, and vice versa. And same goes for the other 3 factions. And sometimes it's the opposite way. It's like, if you're really low with the Kingsguard, then the Dragul people are gonna give you a thumbs up on something or give you an extra bonus somehow. So there's that piece. And so those 3 factions are kind of a big deal in Role Player Adventures, and you'll be able to take a quiz today that was written by John Brieger, one of the developers, that tells you, based on your personal, judgment calls on situations, where you land on those, on which of those 3 factions. So that's something to look forward to. Dun, 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 dun. What can you tell us about? Let me back up. So Robert says, "What can you tell us about the Starlit Door faction?" Well, the main character you will meet from the Starlit Door is a character named Gimlix, which he writes a letter to the people who are. You can read a letter that he wrote on the back of the Fiends and Familiars big box, and so he's a gnome, kind of treasure hunter, but he's like the kind of your main contact with them. But there's 2 other contacts that you'll like, bigger figures within the Starlit Door, called Maula and Masik. One, Masik, is a dragonkin, and Maula is a Bastia, like cat person. And you'll be exposed to their plans, and then you'll get a chance to either get involved with them, and which they tend to favor chaos in general, or you cannot. So I don't want to tell you too much, because but Starlit Door's cool if you're into that kind of stuff. There are there's multiple kind of plot points in which you can either help out the Starlit Door or not, or help out somebody else, and you have to make those choices for yourself. Yannick is asking, will there be a lockup expansion? There is plans for a lockup expansion. It is it's just kind of later in my schedule. Stan, the designer, did a great job doing a small expansion for it. So it's not going to be like the box will be similar to the cartographer's box, where it's kind of like, like that size or so. Um, and the current name of it is the breakout is the current name of it. So lockup breakout is the name of it, and it adds like a secondary board that's small. Everybody gets a new player token, like so everybody has an additional one. So I had the foresight when I was building those trays. I was like, hey, we should make these a little bit wider than we need them to be, so that in case we ever do an expansion, there's space for another token. And so it turns out that we did. So everybody's going to get another token. That token is currently called a seeker, but that might change. And so it's been kind of sitting. We got some artwork done for it, but we're going to move into development on it for like an additional passive development, like maybe coming up with some additional cards or whatever, kind of fleshing out the game a little bit and doing some final playtesting on it in later this summer after all the development on Roll Player Adventures is kind of wrapped. So we're still fine tuning things on Roll Player Adventures. Things are moving into layout to try to get ahead of the game so that we can move into manufacturing sooner than later. But some of these new additions, like the legendary mode, and then the other thing is the adding the legendary mode and then kind of just adjusting the way resting works. Those have caused some changes in some of the books, and so just kind of getting all that stuff in place and doing all the additional testing. So that's kind of keeping us kind of busy. So the lockup expansion we'll move on to. The plan is to do that in like January, February is kind of what I'm thinking. So that's the thing. So there's also, I don't know, this is like a spoiler, maybe not a spoiler. So there's also in Cullbeck Prison, which lockup takes place in, which Adventure 5 of Roll Player Adventures takes place in. So it's all connected. You will find some goblins and different groups of people playing games within the game, right? So within Cullbeck Prison, there are people playing different games, and the most common one, there's a couple, but the most common one is a card game called Goblin Vaults. So it's kind of this gambling game that people play in Cullbeck, and so we've been talking about like, hey, if we were to like make Goblin Vaults for real, what would it be? So we're exploring that as a potential option of like creating a small card game that is, it's kind of like Sabak or whatever from Star Wars, where it's like a game from the game. So Sunfang Lim is working on that with Jesse Wright. They're kind of exploring a couple ideas, and if that goes well, we'll see. If it goes well, or if we land with something cool, then maybe that'll be like an add-on for the lockup expansion campaign. So that's what I'm thinking. Anyway, let me back up again to some of your questions. Martin is looking, he lives in Denmark, so he's looking for opportunities to reduce shipping. I get that. Understood. Stanislav is asking about what are the stretch goals. Well, I'm not going to tell you. There's stretch goals past 55K, 550, and when we knock a couple more down, I'll put a couple more up. So just stay tuned. Judson would like to see some legacy secret envelopes, which is what we have. So that's that secret unlock at 55 or 550 is kind of legacy. I mean, it doesn't. I'll tell you this. Well, I don't want to tell you anything about it. So there is a secret envelope, but you'll just have to wait and see what it is. I'm buying this to play. Martin says, I'm buying this to play with my friends as well as my gamer friends. The game fits every category, which makes it an even greater game. Thank you. Judson, for cartographers, would like great to have 4 or 5 dry erase boards. Yeah, so dry erase boards is interesting. I mean, usually what people are doing is that they'll just take the sheets and either blow them up, like download it from my website and make them larger and laminate them, and then you can dry erase boards. That's what I do at conventions back when I used to do conventions. Is that I had a large format one, so people could we could like play more people at the table and not everybody writing so small. So it's an idea to do erase boards. It's kind of like one of those things where like I'm not sure what demand is on it, but something with pricing out. Like I'm not sure how much people would be willing to pay for it either. So something to think about for sure. Yannick says, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. I would say I would pay for some upgraded lockup component. So yeah, Yannick, you tell me what would you like to see? Obviously everything costs money, but that is an idea. That's an idea. If there's something like specific that people really want to see upgraded, we could either look into offering those alongside the expansion or in the expansion that would upgrade something in the base game. I mean, I always thought it would be cool to have like, you know, those. I mean, I'm just like dreaming here of the like the hive tiles, like the Bakelite style tiles for all the characters. The problem is that they're not going to fit on the racks anymore, unless they were really thin. I don't know if they can make them that thin. So I mean, they would have to be like Azul has those kind of tiles, which are cool. Yeah. We can look into them for sure. The problem is whenever you get to these things, you have to be able to. The minimum print run is usually about 1,500 units. So if we said, hey, we want to do these crazy Bakelite tiles for lockup, that's cool. I need to make sure that I'll be able to sell at least 1,500 of them at whatever, and at that price, the cost per unit is usually relatively high. So it's got to make economic sense for me to do, but it is cool, and I like that game. Obviously I love lockup, and I think the expansion is really cool. But yeah, I mean, my kind of the player cell was kind of like the big thing that I was trying to get done for that game to make it look different than any other game. But there's opportunities for other things for sure. I'm just reading questions. Martin says, what do you consider your main inspirations for adventures? Was in, I don't know what wasn't GH. I don't know what GH stands for. I should though. Seventh Continent, Near and Far, or something else. So Roll Player Adventures, the inspiration mainly just came from people saying, hey, I made this cool character in Roll Player, and now I want to do something with it. And Near and Far had come out, and Above and Below, and I was enjoying those games, and I started playing other storybook games, and it just seemed like narrative games, like there was just interest in them, and I was starting to play a lot of them, and I really liked that idea of a narrative like storyline. But the idea is that like if you have a character and you want to go on an adventure, that's a story. An adventure is a story. So does that mean there's a couple different ways to approach that? One is like open-ended standard RPG like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Starfinder, something kind of where you have a rule set that people can explore freely, or you put something on the rails like a game like Above and Below or something like that. And that's definitely the route I went, because I tend to like those kind of games better. I like more structure in what I'm doing, and then you don't have to worry about there not being a GM or something like that, because that's usually, at least in my experience, one of the things that is hardest about playing or role-playing games, like finding a good GM or finding somebody that wants to be the GM, who kind of wants that level of responsibility and involvement. So the thing about this game and many of these narrative games that are board games, you don't need to have someone that's in charge of like coming up with all the story twists and building all that out. Like the game designers have already figured that out and set you on a path. So there's outside of that, all the influences are like everything I grew up with, you know. So it's like, and a lot of the, I guess when I say that, I'm talking about the narrative story. And James and Peter were kind of the guys that were coming up with the bigger beats of what they wanted to see the story go into, but like I was helping oversee that. Um, but there's a lot of like moments. There's moments that feel a little Harry Pottery, and there's like little moments that feel like, some GI Joe episode I saw once or whatever. Like there's lots of there's kind of these moments that just because as fans of science fiction and fantasy, and we just there's these kind of things that remind you of things you've seen before. And that happens. I think that happens anytime I read a novel too. It's like, oh yeah, this reminds me of X, Y, and Z. The biggest plot point that I was like a stickler for, or that I really pushed hard on, was adventure. One of the adventures. I want to say it's number 9. I think it is 9. Yeah, Adventure 9 is the Grilling Colossus, and that's the one where you kind of that happens inside this giant construct robot. And I think I talked about this previously, but the big inspiration for that was like, I remember this D&D module called Earthshaker that I played when I was a kid, and I just remember looking through that module, over and over again, and just really liking it, and just the idea of like science fiction and fantasy kind of melding into one. So we have robots in our universe of Roll Player due to backer voting during the Monsters and Minions campaign, called these constructs. So in Role Player Adventures, you start to learn the origins. Where did these things come from? What are they capable of? And like, how much of them, how much conscience they have versus being truly just machines. So that became a big deal in Role Player Adventures, and it all came out of backers' requests. So that was what was really cool about it. In terms of like Seventh Continent, I actually have not played Seventh. Oh, GH is Gloomhaven. Sorry about that. Martin was asking if there was Gloomhaven influence. So I mean, I played a lot of Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven as much as a tactical game, but there's definitely some influences in which, like, I feel like Gloomhaven and Roleplay Adventures had like the same influences. Like I didn't have a direct influence from Gloomhaven, although I play it. It's probably subconscious. Like I played a lot of Gloomhaven. I think I retired my character, and then I played a couple more scenarios after that, and then kind of said I felt like I had seen what the game had to offer and wanted to move on to other things, because there's only so many of these kind of big games that you can play for a long time. We must have played at least like 30 or 40 scenarios or something. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like a lot. And we were playing every other week for well over a year. So anyway, you actually mentioned Seventh Continent. I have not played that. I would like to, but I hear it was really expensive on Kickstarter, and I haven't heard a ton of glowing reviews after the fact. So there you go. John Rogers says he was looking forward to Nexus Game Fair this year. Yeah, Nexus Game Fair is a convention in Milwaukee, which I went to last year. I actually wasn't planning on being there this year, but it didn't happen anyway. So there you go. Justin's talking about wood tiles with heat transfer for lockup, potentially. Or a pop-up board, says Pete. Yeah. I had this idea. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't do it. Is that for lockup to do like a 3D, like get some miniature sculptors and stuff to build like a 3D version of the lockup board that had like LED lights that you couldn't see the source for each one, and it would be like the convention version of lockup, where you've got these 3D miniature, like like you would see one of those, like those Dwarven Forge style, Dwarvenite style game board, and I just assumed it would be really heavy, but it would look amazing. But it would be mainly for playing at conventions and stuff. But we didn't do conventions this year, so I'm kind of glad we didn't do that. But it was a cool idea, and I would love to see somebody else do that. I'm sure one of the like 3D printer people out there could make this awesome 3D lockup board that I would love to pay somebody to make for me. But Ben Moy is commenting on my hair. Ben Moy is a designer who Ben Moy I was with him at Gamma. So Gamma, the Gamma trade show is like an industry only trade show that happens in the spring, and it was happening, and it was the last couple of years have been in Reno, and I was there, and I was hanging out with Ben at the end, and like COVID was starting to come on strong. They just like shut down Italy, and everybody was getting like crazy nervous, and I was just like, I want to just get home. But I got to hang out with Ben for a long time while at that show, and we had a good time. So there we go. Yannick's talking about non-cube resources for lockup. Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, you have a disconnect between like the icons on the board and the images and the tokens, but maybe the tokens have like that little cube on it or something. I don't know. John Rogers, is there somewhere that gives general plots or themes of the adventure book? So there is. We've been really trying to be careful about like not giving away too many spoilers. So each one of the books on the back has like a quick overview of what the plot of that adventure is. I'm just trying to figure out if I should be spoiling that or not. But so I mean, the overall plot, of Role Player Adventures is there's been this prophecy that this Azima is this mirror dragon that created the world and brought in basically opened up these gates for people from different universes and parallel universes to come over from, and that's where kind of the Dragul races came from. So that's where like the orcs and the hobgoblins and the vampires and those guys kind of were all in their own little planar verses, and they kind of came to Ulos through these gates because Azima kind of invited everyone to come. And then eventually Azima dies, and there's a prophecy that she's going to be back in, I think, 3,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. And so in the meantime, all these different groups in Ulos have been like, having wars and creating alliances or not creating alliances. And the gate of Rizzer Wall and like the return of Azima is prophesied that it's like happening very soon. So all these different groups are all kind of vying for control of the gate so that like they can receive her blessing when she comes back. So that's kind of like the big overarching picture. And then kind of on a more macro level, you are a member of the Kingsguard at the beginning of the game. Which happens in the kingdom, which is in the kingdom of Nalos, which is one of the regions of Ulos. And you kind of just start out doing the king's bidding a little bit, and then going on these little missions. And then you start finding more and more about the Star of the Door, which is the small cult, and the motivations of the Dragul. And then you I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this without giving too much away. So you just, you go on these handful of missions, battle Black Lake, you probably already know about or played or watched some playthroughs of. That's very kind of that mission serves as a tutorial to introduce ideas of like Dragolium, which is like the special metal that can hold back the power of these artifacts. There's you find out that there's artifacts in the game that are related to these different planes. You also learn, you meet the Tog, the troll. You meet Grick and Tarek, who are two generals of the Kingsguard. But in terms of like big picture story stuff, the first adventure is very introductory. And then when you get into adventure 2, it's called Terran's Trophy. then I think at the end of Adventure One, it tells you that you are King Terran is the halfling king of a city called Sabek, which is the capital of Nalos, and he sends you off to kill a troll, which has been bothering some people in his hometown of Jolev. And I mean, some other things happen on that mission, but you'll learn more things about the king, and you'll learn about the how halflings work. And then we get into the third adventure is outbreak in Undercity, which is basically about hunting a vampire in the Undercity, which is the underground city underneath Sabbath. And you are sent there to do something about that. You also find some other people along the way while you're down there. And then man, I just don't want to give too much away. But then you're in the Eye of Ulos, which is the next adventure. You are going into something bad has happened in Sabbath. And you go in there and try to figure out what's happening and why. And there's one of the things about the game is that there's to transfer from one world to another, there are these rifts that appear. And there's a rift in the sky over Sabbath at the beginning of Adventure 4, and something very dramatic happens at the end of that adventure. And then you're in the Kalbeck, and then while you're in Kalbeck, you're actually you've been arrested. So how did you become arrested? You'll have to find out. Or why did you become arrested? So you're imprisoned at Kalbeck, and you want to escape. And then Bogroot Demon is the next adventure, and that one you are there's an evil presence in the bog, and he's on the cover of the book, which I think is probably shown on the Kickstarter page. And you'll meet this evil presence, and then you can kind of side with him or not side with him. And there's the Frogkin. They're asking for your help. The Kingsguard are looking for you because you escaped prison. And then I don't know. That's a kind of a starting. I mean, I've been blabbering on about the plot of this whole game, but I'll just leave it at that. So that takes you through the first couple adventures. It's very much in terms of thematic. It's very about it's wide open in terms of your choices. You can all the choices are designed to be kind of somewhat morally ambiguous, or at least have reasons why you would pick all of these potential choices. When we were playtesting the game, whenever we would get to a choice and I read it, I'd be like, why would anybody pick this choice? That means, okay, we need to go figure out and make sure that this both options of the choice are interesting and viable options for players. So that it's all about choice, and it's all about like making sure we're not favoring any particular path either. So to make so that we don't have the majority of people doing one certain thing. We would love it to see just widespread of different choices that people are making, so that they can. I've talked about this before, but I would love to see those moments where people get together who both play the game, and they're like, Zalek was under this rubble, and we helped him out, and we're all the Kingsguard, and these other people are like, we we did something totally different, and we hate that guy or whatever. So I would love to have these different perspectives. So anyway, enough about that question. I will jump back in. The guards and lockups are constructs. Had exploded. Yeah, Jed's. Yeah, sorry, that was 10 minutes ago. But yeah, the guards and lockup are constructs. Yeah. So Kirk is asking about the warehouse. So that's man. I'm streaming on my laptop. If I was streaming on my phone, I don't know if there's a good way to. If you can, I don't think you can switch devices in the middle of a stream. But but maybe next time I'll show off the warehouse. So I moved into this new warehouse last earlier this month at the beginning of the month. So it's almost, I guess it was the beginning of June. So I've been in here, a month and 10 days. I used to work out of my basement, and I used to store my whatever inventory I had either in my basement or in my garage. And with the close of the Kickstarter, or the delivery of the Kickstarter of Fiends and Familiars, the second expansion for Roll Player, plus kind of my house kind of bursting at the seams and wanting to create some separation between home and work a little bit more because I was just always working. That really hasn't changed, but I have a commute, whereas before I would just go to my basement and start working. But I have a warehouse that I worked out of now. It's like 1,700 square feet. About 700 of it is office space, which is my office, and like a lobby where I can eat lunch or I play video games sometimes during the day. And then I have a shipping area where I ship stuff, or my wife ships stuff, or whoever's helping me for the sales that happen on my website. And then I've got like 1,000 square feet of this big warehouse, and some of it is like a designated area for playing games with like the hope that someday I'll be able to play games with my friends again. And I like a kitchen area, and then there's like just this, this big warehouse where there's pallets of games. So I've gotten inventory from the different Kickstarter campaigns, the stuff that doesn't go into retail. Some of it will go to my warehouse, and then when orders come in on my website, then that's where they come from. The main intention of that product being there is so that I can drive it to conventions and stuff. But conventions someday, hopefully someday soon. Martin asked if I played a lot of games like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. For sure. So I used to play all those. I remember seeing the magazine ads in the PC magazines where like Baldur's Gate was about to come out, and everybody was super excited. So there's those PC games like Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, and what's the one with the dude with the blue face? Anyway, there's a bunch of those kind of isometric Black Isle games that I played a ton of, and I love those for sure. I don't know if I saw that there was the new Baldur's Gate game coming, but I'm excited if there is. Stanislav, it says, is it 2021 yet? You would, man, definitely this. The COVID has made life hard for everybody, and in America for sure, everything feels like it's getting worse before it's getting better. So it's been trying, but just keep your head down and keep trying to move forward and try to make cool games and just kind of look forward to opportunities in the future. I mean, I know a lot of people are doing stuff like online conventions. I was planning on doing some stuff for Origins, and then that kind of all went south. And we're doing some stuff for Gen Con online, but not a huge amount. So we'll see. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of online conventions? Have you guys been going, like attending them? Have you been enjoying that? Are there things about them that you think are cool, or things that you don't like? I'd love to see what you guys think, because I'm personally in a spot where like I don't really like playing games online that much. I much prefer to play in person, to the point in which like I'm not really playing besides just playing some games with my friend or my family, and then a couple online games. I've been playing Dominion and like some prototype stuff, and Stone Age and some other games online. Sorry about that. I haven't been playing a lot of games, which I definitely miss playing games with my friends. I'm sure you guys feel the same. So just as here's a spoiler for Lockup fans. I do have some promo cards coming for Lockup. So you should see those in the fall. It's kind of interesting. It's not really that interesting story, but the Russian publisher Hobby World had asked for some additional content for the game for their backers or for their people. And Stan just basically went ahead and designed a handful of cards. And so the Russian copy was going to get that in it. And then I said, well, I want those cards too. So we're going to make those. We're going to print those too. So I should have those available late summer or early fall. So they'll go in the Board Game Geek store, and I'll throw them on my web store as well. And then probably when the expansion goes live on Kickstarter, like it'll also include those cards as a add-on or like included as well, I suspect. So maybe they won't be included, but they'll be available. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Anyway. Oh yeah. Anyway. Can you tell me how you came up with the names for places? I really like it. So Jetson's wondering about how do we come up with the names for these different world stuff. It feels purely random. We just kind of come up with names. Things we want it to be easy to pronounce. I try to avoid like any kind of apostrophes in words as much as I can. James comes up with the majority of these things. We try to just the two requirements are like try to make sure it doesn't sound too much like something else. Make it easy to pronounce as much as possible. Make sure it's not too reminiscent of something else, and make sure it sounds cool. So you kind of mix those things together, and out comes out some options, and we just say that sounds cool, and then we just do it. So it's seemingly random. Okay, so Kirk said 6 minutes ago, hey, why don't you just carry your laptop around? So let's see, my wife is saying something. I don't know. I'll do whatever. I'll do a quick tour. What's his name? Kirk just asked for a tour of the my warehouse. I'm gonna give you a real quick one. I'm just disconnecting all my stuff. I have like the largest laptop I've ever seen, but how does this work? So basically, I'll get my fat head out of the way. This is kind of like my lobby area. I've got like this cool, my wife just put these glass cases together that have copies of some international productions. This is where I sit and play video games. And this is the shipping station with those are all Minotaur boards and stuff, and I don't know, copies of Roll Player and Monsters of Dominion, just like shipping envelopes, and that's like my shipping station. Just it's a laptop on a box, not real fancy here at Thunderworks, but and then like this is the warehouse area where this is where I just right now I eat lunch, and where I would play some games, and then it's like some prototype components. These are like replacement parts. All those racks have like boards from Roll Player in them, so when everybody needs replacements, and those are racks that have like I don't know, just trying to. There's like dice and other stuff when people need replacement parts. Those go there, and then I've got like this faux wall that has like some games in it and some banners that I used to take to conventions back in the day. And then this is like the warehouse. Yay! So this is like I've got like piles of cardboard that I use for like padding and boxes and stuff, and then these are just like pallets of games. This is, what does that say? Oh, Roll Player 6. So that's the 6th printing of Roll Player right there. Pretty exciting. But that's kind of it. Boxes of stuff that I've had made. So that's, and then this is just like more replacement parts. So that's like, I don't know what's in there. Those are cartographers' cards. That is like player start tokens from Monsters and Minions and cubes from Roll Player. So, and then this is just like random, more replacement parts. These stack of big boxes are damaged copies. So I don't know what to do with them yet, but there they are. So that's the warehouse. It's got like a door in the back that you can lift that up and drive a car in here, or if there's a truck that comes in, then I can unload directly from the back of a truck. And it's here's the kitchen. What is that thing? Just a refrigerator and my sweet microwave / oven, Keurig, dishes, bathroom. That's the tour. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but you requested it, you shall receive. Anyway. Going through some additional questions. Jetson is asking about mentions Dragonlance. I did a bunch of I'd read a ton of Dragonlance stuff when I was a kid. I still like Dragonlance. I like the setting. What else? So I've read a bunch of those, like Hickman and Weiss trilogies and some of the other ones. I mean, I don't think I read all of them because there's a million of them, but I probably read at least 12 of those Dragonlance novels back in the day. George says, I did Con of Champions in May. I really didn't like the online gaming, so I haven't done anything else. I want to like it, but too many distractions, too many technical glitches, and too difficult to control. I like 100% agree with you, George. Like, I'm just really nervous about. I just don't know how much fun it'll be, and it's like, for me, the motivation for conventions is mainly to see friends. Secondary is like to sell some stuff. Third is like to do demos and then potentially sell some stuff. And I don't know, we'll see how it converts. So I guess that's the question. Like, let's say a year and a half from now, that we've got a sweet vaccine. COVID is like, but people aren't thinking about it anymore because everybody's been doing awesome. I mean, this is maybe a pipe dream. But so in that situation, are we still doing do online conventions? Like, are they still a thing? Are people still going to them? Is that still something people are interested in? Like maybe for somebody who can't go to conventions, but they still want to do organized play online. Maybe that's a thing people want. I'm not sure, It's definitely not something I'm super excited about, but I'd be interested to see if other people are. Thanks for the tour. Thanks for the tour. My wife says, glad we washed the dishes before we left. And that's pretty much it. So I'm seeing if there's anything, last questions or whatever, feel free to ask away. My arm hurts from carrying that laptop for so long. That's funny. I'm glad you guys got to see the warehouse, even though it wasn't the best tour of the world. I'm sure it was serviceable to some degree. I guess a couple things just to be clear. One, appreciate all the support. I can never say that enough. Two, if you ever have any questions or concerns or complaints or whatever you want to talk about, feel free to reach out. I do really think it's cool, the kind of community that we've been able to build kind of around Thunderworks and Roll Player in the last few years, and it's a cool thing. Previously, like one of the other things I like about doing conventions is that it brings people together, right? It's like I end up getting help from a bunch of different people, whether it be local people or like my own kind of people from Madison, Wisconsin. And sometimes they know each other and sometimes they don't. But since Thunderworks is kind of like the connection point for all these people, these like relationships and these friendships form. And I think that's like super cool. And gaming brings people together, and I truly believe that. And I like to be a part of that. So that's cool. George has some comments about that he thinks organized online conventions will continue for people who can't make physical ones. I think that's true. But for anyone who hasn't been to like a in-person convention, like it's super fun, and I recommend going to them when they're safe for sure. So, and that's pretty much it for me. I just want to say thanks for you guys tuning in. Thanks for the support on the Kickstarter, and thanks for your interest in all the stuff I have going up. So, good to see everybody, and we will see you next Friday, hopefully. If I will just continue doing these for a while. I mean, I guess next Friday. Oh, actually, next Friday is the big deal. Next Friday, the Kickstarter is closing. So, like, I'm gonna be here, and I think Tim will probably be here too. So, Tim Vernig of Roll Player or Thunderworks brand ambassador fame. He does a great job, and I think he says he plans on being here for the close of the Kickstarter. So, you guys don't have to hear me talk all the time. You can talk to Tim because he's interesting, just as interesting, if not more interesting than I am. So, cool. So, anyway, third time's a charm. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.